So I'm frequently told by some golfers that I'm, quote, not long enough to get into trouble. What those people ought to say is that they aren't practicing course management. Because if your distance is getting you into trouble, the solution is to practice better club selection. LANGARA is the rare course where even my driver is long enough to get me into trouble. So here in my practice round, I'm figuring out how to attack this short course, where club selection is key.
Coach Gordon saying that might have been the wrong club?
Yeah, that 4 3 wood. So this hole is interesting. There's some lefties that will rip driver. For everybody else, I find people that get too aggressive on this hole, it doesn't really pay off. I would hit a club that goes max, like 210, because you want to hit to the right side of the fairway, and if you hit it too far, you're in those trees.
Lesson learned. I'll hit hybrid here in the tournament, but today I'm lucky enough to have an angle to this pin. I wedge it close and am left with about 10 feet. And the first putt of the day is a bit aggressive, but we do tidy up for par. We're right back to making strategic club decisions on 2. As always, the question here is where do we want to miss? The pin is at 180 yards, but the green is 30 yards long and only 17 yards across, so a miss short is better than a miss left or right. That lends itself better to my 6-iron dispersion than to my 5 hybrid, so I commit to the 6-iron without focusing on trying to send it farther than I can.
Dancing.
Okay, so short par 5, only 460, but uphill the whole way.
A short par 5 is a hole I'll score well on over the course of a season, but a tournament is just a one-day snapshot. Bogeys and birdies will come at unexpected times, like the unexpected birdie on the long par 3, and my wayward tee shot on the 3rd that prevents me from going for the green in 2. I'll follow another rule of course management here, not attempting a stupid shot after a bad shot. From thick fescue, I won't try to hit any more club than a 7-iron here. And the reward is just a wedge in, where I learn another important lesson to apply in the tournament. Don't miss this green long. I have a tough putt from the collar here, and I don't get it as close as I'd like. I also fail to tidy up the par putt. Oh well, on to the next. For a short course, this is a pretty long par 4. It plays as stroke hole 3. It's also playing into wind today. And while I don't want you to be thinking about making bogey from the tee, I think it's good to level set by understanding that you should expect to bogey the higher rated holes on the card. My course handicap here is 7, so bogeys on stroke holes 1 through 7 shouldn't surprise or faze me. That knowledge helps ease the pain of a thin chip that leads to a long par putt. And a good lag putt helps prevent this score from ballooning further. And I won't lament this bogey. Coach Gordon is showing me the trouble on this hole. It's imperative that we hit this one up the right to have an unobstructed shot into the green. So far so good, but I flare the approach shot into a breeze, and it's time to reactivate scramble mode. I bump this one into the side of the bank here. It's not as pretty as high and soft, but it eliminates the big miss. I just want to ensure I have a putter in hand for the next one. And this time, we're lucky enough to make it. It's another hole with trees up the left and bunkers that are reachable with driver. So I opt for the 3-wood, and I'm pleased that it's right on my target line. I have just a wedge in, and even though it's pushed a hair, I'm lucky to catch a piece. And if I haven't mentioned it already, this is where scoring happens. Scores in the 70s aren't about firing every approach to 6 feet and making every putt you look at. They're about good course management and 2-putting when you're supposed to. A brief segue about distances and ego on this long par 4. I think a lot of us think we hit the ball farther than we do. Only in 90-degree heat in the middle of the summer can I send a drive this far. And while I'm pleased with it, the game isn't about ego. I've hit 150-yard 9-irons, but the scorecard doesn't measure how far you hit a 9-iron. It just counts how many strokes you take to get the ball in the hole. I opt for a smooth 7-iron, and I do hit the green. But like I mentioned, this is where scoring really happens. Even Pro Gordon isn't immune to brain farts on long putts, and neither am I. Both Gordon and I thought this putt would be pacier down the hill, and it's another good lesson for me to apply in the tournament. Learning the golf course is just as important as learning the golf swing, and hopefully I can avoid this outcome in the tournament. Gordon told me the miss here was left, and boy was he right. This one winds up inside 15 feet, but this course does count its greens among its defenses. I miss this one low, and have to settle for par. The ninth hole is another tight one, with trees in play on the right, and a big one obstructing the green. And you can see Gordon's real-time review of my drive here. Fortunately, it holds up in the right rough, and I figured my 140 club was enough into this wind. And although it was online, it falls about half a club short. And on lag putts like these, distance matters more than line. But this is the rare instance where my read is dead wrong. I had it moving to my right, but because I had the distance right, I'm able to tidy it up for par and close the 9 2 over par. It's a tidy card so far, with only 3 squares. But the one stat to draw attention to is the 17 putts plus another 3 greenside shots. So more than half of our shots have been greenside. I always highlight this when emphasizing the importance of diversifying your practice routine. And speaking of diversifying, we'll pause for a brief word from today's sponsor.
The game has grown so much over the last few years. According to an R&A report, global golfers are up 15% since 2020 and 34% since 2016. Nowadays, even the richest among us are trying to secure the bag to make ends meet. Looking at you, PGA Tour. And according to a recent study, over 1/3 of workers are now expecting to retire at age 70 if they can retire at all. The events of 2022 have undermined the most popular approach to investing. And while the 60-40 model, the one recommended to aspiring retirees hoping to build a nest egg, has provided returns, it may not provide the protection it once did in times of chaos. So to help reduce risk in the case the market slumps again, the name of the game is diversification. This is why old school money managers and millennials alike have begun investing in alternative assets like fine art. According to UBS research, global art sales hit $67 billion in 2022, surpassing pre-pandemic levels. And that's thanks to our sponsors at Masterworks. Now anyone can potentially benefit from investing in multi-million-dollar blue-chip artwork. Their team has decades worth of auction data and the results to show for it. In fact, all 15 of their sales thus far have delivered a profit to investors. Now, I haven't invested in art just yet, and of course past performance is not indicative of future results. But it's easy to see why over 750,000 people have jumped on board. There is a wait list, but my viewers can get priority access to start today. Just check the link in the description.
Earlier this week at McCleary, I followed up a great front 9 with a disaster back 9. So another thing I'm trying to keep in check today is to stay in every shot. And fortunately, a flare drive on 10 still leaves me with the wedge in, and I'm able to knock it on the green. And after the misread on the 9th hole, this putt is much better, and I'm able to start the back with a tap-in par. But here comes the real test of nerves on the back. My drive on 11 is pull-hooked OB, and I'm forced to re-tee. And unsurprisingly, player B hits the best drive of the day, pushing 300 down the middle. But then, I'll take only a second to chastise myself before stepping over this wedge from my most comfortable distance. It's on the green, and somehow I limit the damage to just a bogey. 12 is another tricky par 3, just past the upper range of my longest iron. But once again, with a deep green, I opt for the straighter club that misses just left. But I mentioned this course's defense as its greens. I had trouble committing to such a high apex point on this one, and it leaves me with work for par. And pardon Robert standing in the way of this 2-putt. But fun fact, Robert, who we just met today, invented the laser putt. Another hole where we'll need to exercise course management. It's only 320 yards, and the fairway narrows next to the water at 200, so we'll take the water out of play with the 180 club, where even my hook is in okay shape. The wind is really picking up, and I take an extra club here that goes just over the back. And now I have to navigate the Canada Geese while chipping up to this pin. It gets nice and close, where I'm able to clean up for par. I've left the mic noise unedited just for this hole, so you can see the wind we were contending with. I grabbed 2 extra clubs here, and I'm lucky to hit it on line, where it still comes up half a club short. But the lag putting has been getting better throughout the round, and it's just another 2-putt. It's the last non-driver hole of the day, and with trees on the left and bunkers on the right, it's imperative to put this one on the fairway. And one more bit of course management here. This back right pin is a sucker pin, and I'm aiming at the middle of the green. I pull it a bit off that line, but with decent club selection on the approach, I'm pin high for the birdie putt. Robert's trying to steer it in the shadows here, and in any event, it's just another 2-putt. We haven't hit a driver since the 11th tee, and unfortunately this one is a big flare up the right that gets murdered by the wind. But once again, I won't get greedy with the recovery shot, opting just to smooth a 7-iron back to the fairway. And now I'll have a short iron in, and I fire one right at it. And with the putting improving throughout the day, we finally get one to go here. We're in the final stretch, but unfortunately the golf gods are going to give me a few more obstacles to overcome. A flared drive here leaves me with a blind shot into the green, but I take an extra club, and I'm lucky to get it green high. And with the confidence steadily building around the greens, I'm able to navigate this downhill double breaker and tidy up for par heading into 18. It's a dogleg right that suits my driver shape, and I end the day with a good one, leaving myself just a wedge in. But unfortunately I muffin top this one a bit, so I'll have one more tester to preserve my score. The weight on this is good, and I do clean up for a 74. And of the 74 shots we took today, a full 40 of them were on or just off the green. My practice heading into the tournament will consist of some chipping and putting, and if I can replicate this kind of day at the Vancouver Open, I should be able to comport myself just fine. As we did in the last video, please submit your guesses for my tournament score. Everybody who guesses correctly will be eligible to win some merch. More on that soon.